What's up, everybody? It's Pikel, and welcome to the Global Power Rankings video. We're going to look at the top 20 teams in the world. These aren't necessarily the 20 teams that I think are the most talented or will end up being a top 20 team at the end of the year. I'm trying to get some teams from each region, and we're going to sort them throughout this video. So let's do the disclaimer real quick. Yes, all of these players are better than me at League of Legends, but the point of these videos is to think about players and teams from a betting perspective and trying to identify opportunities where we can make money on the sportsbook and on DraftKings. In the first part of the video, I'm going to go through each region quickly, and then we will talk about the top 20 teams in the world. If I don't think that a team is going to contend for qualification for Worlds, I'm not going to spend time on them in this video. There are some teams that I include because I like their talent, and I think that there are best case scenarios where they can surprise a lot of people. BLG is my baseline team for ranking the teams globally, and we will go in this order: LCS, LEC, LCK, and the LPL. So first up, let's go to the LCS. So in the LCS, I think that there are 5 teams that have chance to make Worlds and 5 teams who don't. I think that FlyQuest and Golden Guardians are bad in particular. I think that it's CLG next, then Immortals and Dignitas. I think that there might be a slight gap between Dig and the other teams, because I think that Dig could be somewhat competitive this year. If you want to see a more in-depth talk about some of those teams, go back to my LCS video. Things will change as time goes on, but that's my baseline for those teams. Then the top 5 teams from North America, who I think all have a legitimate shot to make Worlds, because North America gets I think 3 still. We have TSM, Cloud9, Team Liquid, and 100 Thieves. I know that a lot of people will think that some of these teams should be in the S tier, but I don't really think that they're a threat to the Eastern teams. But I do think that Evil Geniuses is a threat to the Eastern teams, and this is because of Danny and Inspired. I think that Impact is obviously good enough to compete at Worlds. I think that Vulcan is definitely good enough to compete at Worlds, and the question mark is Jojo Pyun. But for this video, I'm assuming that things will break the right way, and if it does break the right way, I think that Evil Geniuses could actually make a run at Worlds and surprise a lot of people. So hopefully that works out. I know that Lock-in's coming up soon, and it'll be our first chance to see EG as a squad, and I'm very hopeful that they will play well. And we'll go Evil Geniuses, 100 Thieves, Team Liquid, C9, and TSM will all be in the later part of this video. Now let's go to the LEC. So in the LEC, I think that there are 2 teams who are good, and then there are a bunch of teams who are not good. Some of these teams who I think are not good will make it to Worlds. It's just I think that Vitality and Fnatic are so much better that even when we get to Worlds, none of these other teams are going to be serious contenders. And obviously that can change as time goes on, but this is just me trying to picture what I think the future is going to look like. So let's just go through it real quick. And a lot of these things, you can kind of look at the betting odds, and you'll see that my thoughts relative to the betting odds are somewhat similar. So the sportsbook has BDS as the worst team. I agree. I'm a little bit lower on XL. I didn't order these teams because I'm not talking about them in this video as much. But I think that XL has chances to be better than. I think that XL has a chance to be on the same level as Astralis, Misfits, Rogue, G2, and Mad Lions, but I don't think that I believe in it. So I'm going to have them with SK and BDS. The 2 best teams from Europe right now are Fnatic and Vitality, and if I'm being honest, I don't even think Fnatic is that good. I just think that Vitality is so much better than everybody else, and I think that they should be dominant. And I know that we think about a dominant team from the West every year where they just completely fall on their face, but I would be truly shocked if Vitality doesn't go to Worlds as the number 1 contender from Europe. And I think that as long as they all play basically to their averages, I think that they'll have a chance to compete at Worlds. I think that it'll be interesting to kind of see as time goes on how do Vitality and Evil Geniuses kind of look relative to one another, because they both have, in my mind, the best chances to compete at Worlds. So let's talk about Fnatic. So they brought in Wonder. I think that if it's a motivated Wonder who's actually going to play League of Legends more than he plays World of Warcraft, I think that he's a good player. Razork is a pretty good jungler coming over from Misfits. Humanoid is coming over from Mad Lions. I think that Humanoid is one of the most overrated players in the world, so I'm not a huge fan of him. I think that Perks and Caps and Larson are all definitely better than him. And then there are probably some other mid laners in the LEC that I like better stylistically. Upset and Hylissang, they're a good bot lane. They don't play my favorite style of League of Legends. I think that Upset is a little boring to watch sometimes, but it's not in an attempt to say that he's bad. He's obviously a very good AD carry. It's just that his style of League of Legends doesn't do as much for me as like Carzzy. Because the problem with someone like Upset is, yes, it's a valid way of playing League of Legends, but you're going up against players like Viper and Ruler who have similar playstyles, but they're just immensely more talented than you, and there's a reason why they're elite world-class AD carries, and you're a better AD carry for LEC. I'm not sure why I'm addressing this directly to Upset. Maybe he watches this video. Sorry if I upset you. I didn't mean that as a pun, I swear. I think that he seems like a nice guy, and I think that Fnatic will do well this year, just not as well as Vitality. Moving on, LCK. So this is where we start to see much more solid competition. I think that Fredit Brion, Hanwha Life, and the Kwangdong Freaks are teams that have legitimately no chance of going to Worlds, and I know it's possible they could like make a shock run. Just when I'm looking at these rosters, I'm not in love with many of these players. I think that Fate is pretty good. I think that Teddy is pretty good. I think that Willer is pretty good. I like Morgan. I like Keen. But as a combined unit, I don't love these players. If you made one team out of these players, then maybe you have something. But as constituted, I'm not a fan. Then we have another pack of 3 teams, and a few of these teams will actually make it into the top 20 just because I need 20 teams. So DRX, Nongshim, KT, and LSB, Live Sandbox, which is the team that hired Yamato Cannon, so obviously they don't know what they're doing. Just kidding, not really. So the thing is with Nongshim, I like Kana. I think that Dread had some good performances last year. BDD is obviously a very good player. Ghost is a good enough player, but Ghost is another one that I'm lower on than public consensus. And then Effort's good enough. Then we have on KT, Rascal's a good player, Cuz is a good player, Arya is a good player, Aiming's a good player, Life is okay. So there's some real talent there. Like if you take this team and put them in the LEC, I think that they're better than everyone for sure than Vitality. And then the last team out of this group is DRX. I'm very high on DRX. I love the team that they put together. I think that Kingen is pretty good. He has room to improve. Piosik is an extremely talented jungler. Anybody who watched Worlds in 2020 should realize that. Then we have Zika coming back to Korea from the LPL, is a Korean mid laner, very strong. Koma scouted him out and brought him to Vici Gaming, and by the end of I think summer 2020, Zika was really building a lot of momentum as one of the next really good mid laners, but then it didn't really all come together in 2021, due in large part to Billy Gaming's incompetent coaching. Then we have Deft, who used to be one of the best AD carries in the world, is still a very good AD carry, but is not at the highest high. He's not an upper echelon AD carry. Still very good though. And then we have Beryl, and I think that this is a good opportunity for Beryl to show how good he is compared to Ghost, because I do think that Ghost probably was holding Beryl back. Then we have the top 3 teams, and people who watch some of my other videos and commented on it will see that there is a slight change. And the reason I changed it to putting Dom1 and T1 into the A tier is because in their region, I think that these 3 teams are obviously the most likely to win the championship and to go to Worlds as the top 3 seeds. But I do think that Gen G is the best. I think that making upgrades in mid and jungle, and then at worst a side grade in support, I think you take a squad that has the first or second best AD carry in the world. You take the first or second best mid laner in the world. You have an incredibly good jungler in Peanut, and then you have your top end support who just need to do their job and not feed. Very excited by that team. With Damwon, who I think is the second best team in Korea right now. We have Birdall, who showed up at Worlds, but didn't have great performances and was kind of concerning to watch. It's interesting that I think Genji just let him go, which is sort of strange to me. But, we'll see how that plays out long term. Canyon, best jungler in the world. Showmaker, one of the two best mid laners in the world. Deocdam, I think, is an upgrade over Ghost. And then Kellen is probably a downgrade from Beryl. I'm not sure why Beryl left. I don't understand the inner workings of Damwon, so I don't know what caused that. And then we have T1. And I think that T1 is the team that probably is the scariest for Korean teams to play against, because they let Kana leave so that Zeus could play. Can you imagine if Zeus is as good as Kana? Like, if Zeus is as good as Kana, then you have 4 players who are like 19 or younger, and then you have Faker, who is still like a world-class mid laner. I don't think he's on the same level as Chovy and Showmaker at this point, like within their region, but obviously still a great player. And you're not going to say to yourself, oh, well, T1 has Faker, they're going to lose. It's just not kind of how you think about League. So that's it for the LCK. And like I said, I think that DRX is probably will be my favorite team in terms of like rooting interest. I'm very excited by Genji and T1 as well. And there are just a lot of players in Korea that I like watching and I hope succeed. So that'll probably become more apparent as the year goes on. Let's go to the LPL. So in the LPL, there are a lot of teams that are not good, and there are a decent number of teams who should probably have world aspirations. So in no particular order other than like how I listed them here. This isn't like exactly how I would rank these teams, but we have OMG, LGD, Thunder Talk. Then we have E-Star and Rogue Warriors, who they're not that team. It's like that's not their team anymore. But this was a pre-made thing on TierMaker, and I didn't want to make the new ones. So I think they turned into Anyone's Legends. We have a couple different teams that have kind of switched it up. So I'll just read it off my list so I know that they're actually there. Thunder Talk Gaming, LGD, Anyone's Legends, Invictus Gaming, OMG, Ultra Prime, World Elite, and Rare Atom. Then in the C tier, we have JDG, FPX, and Ninjas in Pajamas, which that's the V5 logo. Then we have BLG. So actually, 2 of those teams from the C tier are going to be in the next part of the video as well, just because I need more teams to round out the top 20. Then in the A tier, we have LNG, Top Esports, RNG, Suning, and the team I have in first right now, but I don't necessarily think that they're the best team from China, is EDG. They're the current champions in the world, so like, out of respect, I mean, make them the top team. But I could see them easily falling out of being the top team in the LPL, because there are so many talented players, so many talented teams, so many strong organizations. So that's basically it. So for this part of the video, we're going to go through each region and kind of compare the teams to Billy Gaming. Actually, let me just get this. So let's just talk about Billy Gaming first, because I'm not sure exactly where they're going to end up. First up, we have their top laner, Breathe. I like Breathe a lot, coming over from World Elite. I think that by the end of last year, Breathe was kind of clearly a top 4, top 5 top laner in the LPL. Then we have Weiwei. Weiwei is a good player. I don't think that Weiwei is a great player, though, which I think might limit them long term. Fofo is kind of the same thing. I know that a lot of people are fans of Fofo. He's just not my style of player. He hasn't done enough to kind of make me think like, yes, this guy can be on a team that is competitive at Worlds. And then we have Doggo. Doggo is kind of a really like hyped up player coming over from Taiwan and is going to be splitting time with Uzi. In a best case scenario, yes, Doggo can turn into an elite AD carry. So that's one of the reasons why I feel it's justified having BLG here, because you have Breathe, who I believe in. You have Doggo, who has really big upside. Fofo can play for his side laners. Then you have Crisp, who has won a world championship with FPX. So obviously, if it comes down to like needing your AD carry to play a specific way, Crisp can probably help push them in the right direction. It could still fail, but that's kind of all you can hope for. So that's BLG. So let's start comparing North American teams. Let's start comparing North American teams to Bilibili Gaming. So first up, let me just rearrange this a little bit. Sorry. First up, we have TSM. So I don't think that TSM is as good as Bilibili Gaming. I think that it would be very cool if it ended up like being the case where TSM could be competitive with them. I just really don't think that it's likely. So we'll just leave TSM here for now. So TSM's roster, we have Huni, Spica, Kaiduo, Tactical, and Shenyi. I think Huni compared to Breathe, I think Breathe is just much more consistent, and Breathe also has like the ceiling that Huni used to have. We haven't seen it as often from Huni recently. Maybe he can tap into that again, and TSM makes a run and can be an interesting team at Worlds. It just doesn't seem likely to me right now. Then we have Spica. Spica is one of the best North American mid laners, or one of the best junglers from North America, but I think he's technically Chinese. I don't know necessarily what his domestic status is. I think that he's just like considered a North American player though, so one of the best North American junglers. Then we have Kaiduo and Shenyi coming over from China. It'll be interesting to see if that actually works out. They both should have no language problems with Spica, and then I think Tactical speaks some Chinese as well. I could be wrong about that, but I think I remember that from TSM's videos about what's going on. And Tactical is an interesting player. He has that kind of flair for the dramatic, where he tries to make this insane play, and sometimes he falls on his face. But you know, he also was on the Team Liquid team that won me $20,000, so I can't really complain too much about him. But we'll leave it there for now. So I think that, you know, clearly I prefer Bilibili Gaming over TSM. Next up, we have Cloud9. So Cloud9, we're not going to be able to see this team yet at the lock-in tournament, which is kind of unfortunate. But we have Summit, Blabber, Fudge, Berserker, and Winsome. So first, when we're thinking about them compared to TSM, I think that Summit is just as good as Huni, if not better. I think that Blabber and Spica are basically a break-even. Right now, I think that Fudge is more of a known quantity than Kaiduo, so I kind of trust that more. And then Berserker and Winsome against Tactical and Shenyi, it's kind of a toss-up. So again, I think that in the best-case scenario, TSM and C9 can have these young players come over, be competitive right away, and really like accelerate into the future with like having a good top laner, having a strong North American jungler. Then you have, you know, some interesting imported players that are young and could theoretically turn into world-class players. And I applaud the effort from these teams for bringing in these types of players, because it's something that North America is kind of reluctant to do, because if you stop being competitive in your region in North America, I feel like the teams get really like freaked out, and they think like, you know, are we going to lose all of our fans? Summit versus Breathe, Weiwei, like just comparing the C9 players to BLG, I think if they played each other in real life right now, I would just take the BLG side. That might change by the time we get to Worlds, but some big question marks for them. Next up, we have Team Liquid. So Bwipo is a legit player. I like Breathe more. Santorin is an okay player. I like way more. Bjergsen, I like Fofo more. But with Hansama and Core JJ, I think that it's very possible that they are a better bot lane than Doggo and Crisp. But it's debatable. So I'm willing to put Team Liquid in a tier above C9 and TSM. And this will change as time goes on. Like, I'm going to move teams up and down, or at least try to, so we get like an accurate top 20. And then we have 100 Thieves. So someday against Breathe, I think that at his peak, Someday was just as good, if not better, than Breathe. But right now, I think Breathe is better than Someday. Weiwei against Closer, I think that Weiwei is probably better. Abadage against Fofo. This is a close one for me because I'm not a huge fan of Fofo, but the fact that I even have to question it isn't a good sign. And then FBI and Huhi against Doggo and Crisp. I think I just prefer Doggo and Crisp. So maybe I should have it like that. Maybe I do like Team Liquid more than 100 Thieves. The problem is that when these two teams play against each other, when Team Liquid's up against 100 Thieves, I'd probably prefer Closer Abadage. But it would be like top 80 carry support versus mid jungle, and which one's easier to play around given the meta, I'm not sure yet, so we'll see how that goes. Then we have EG, and this is one that is interesting to me. I think that Impact versus Breathe, I think I definitely like Breathe more. Inspired against Weiwei, I do think I like Inspired more. Jojo Pion against Fofo, I don't know enough about Jojo Pion, so I'm going to say Fofo. And then Danny and Vulcan against Doggo and Crisp. I prefer Danny and Vulcan based off of what I've seen from Danny. I think that Danny is going to be one of the best AD carries in the world. That's what I feel, and I don't know if that's insane or not, but we will find out shortly. So EG is going to be the first team to get past BLG. We'll see how high I can put them as time goes on. You know what? Screw it. We're just gonna put them right here. Okay, so those are the LCS teams. Let's go to the LEC, and obviously this one will go quick because there are only 2 teams. So, Fnatic. We have Wunder, Razork, Humanoid, Upset, Hylissang. So let's start with them against 100 Thieves. So Wunder against Someday, I think that's basically a break-even. Closer against Razork, it's probably a break-even. Abadage against Humanoid, I think it's a break-even. I'm not impressed by Humanoid. I think he's very overrated. And then FBI and Huhi against Upset and Hylissang, I think it's probably Fnatic. Then we go Team Liquid against Fnatic. I think Bwipo is better than Wunder at this point. Santorin and Razork, I think Razork is better. Bjergsen and Humanoid. Humanoid's probably better than Bjergsen, but I prefer Hansama and Core JJ to Upset and Hylissang. So I'm fine leaving it like this. My concerns surrounding Humanoid and my preference for Hansama and Core JJ, I think that I'm just going to leave it like that. And then we have Vitality, and Vitality is pretty awesome. I definitely like Vitality more than Team Liquid. I don't even need to go through that thought exercise. So let's compare BLG to Vitality. So in the top lane, I think that Alphari is close to the level of Breathe, but I do prefer Breathe. I think that Selfmade's probably a better jungler than Weiwei. I think that Perks is better than Fofo. I think that Carzzy and Labrov are probably not as good as Doggo and Crisp, or Uzi if he plays. So it's really close. It's really close for me. And then just to do the thought experiment for Vitality against EG to maybe help give me some clarity. Impact against Alphari, I prefer Alphari. Inspired against Selfmade, I prefer Inspired. Jojo Pion against Perks, I prefer Perks for now. Danny and Vulcan against Carzzy Labrov, I prefer Danny and Vulcan. So I think that with Vitality, I think this is a good spot for them. I do like this right here. So that's that. Let's go to the LCK. So in the LCK, we have DRX. So let's compare DRX to BLG. So we have Kingen against Breathe. I prefer Breathe for now. Pyosik against Weiwei. I prefer Pyosik. Zika against Fofo. I prefer Zika. Deft and Beryl against Doggo and Crisp. I probably prefer Doggo and Crisp. So it's probably there. And then let's do it against Vitality. Alphari against Kingen. I probably prefer Alphari barely. Pyosik against Selfmade. I prefer Pyosik. Zika against Perks. I prefer Zika. and then Deft and Barrel against Carzzy and Labrov. I probably like Deft and Barrel more. But this is very close to me. This is very close. So I think this is a good spot for them. Who else do we have? Let's do Nongshim. So for Nongshim, we have Kana against Breathe. I do think that Kana is better than Breathe, but they're both very good top laners. They're two of my favorite top laners in the world right now. Dread against Weiwei. I think I prefer Weiwei, but, I could go either way on that one. BDD against Fofo. I think I prefer BDD, but I could be convinced otherwise. And then Ghost and Effort against Doggo and Crisp. I prefer Doggo and Crisp. So I think let's do Vitality and Nongshim. So Kana against Impact, Kana against Alphari, I prefer Kana. Dread against Selfmade, I prefer Selfmade slightly. BDD and Perks, I think I prefer Perks still. And then Carzzy and Labrov against Ghost and Effort. No. Yes. I think I prefer Carzzy and Labrov. So I'm fine leaving it like this. Who else? Am I missing a team? No, I think I'm fine. So let's go to the next couple of teams. DRX. T1. So I know that I prefer T1. I know that I prefer Damwon. And I know that I prefer Genji. Let's just throw them up here. For starters. Like I don't even need to go through that thought exercise. And then let's go to the LPL. So we have two teams that I wanted to mention from this tier. So let's do JDG. So 369 against Breathe, I prefer Breathe. Kanavi against Weiwei, I prefer Kanavi. Yagao against Fofo, I think I prefer Yagao. And then LPC and Missing against Doggo and Crisp, I probably prefer Doggo and Crisp. Which makes sense because I already have them this way in my rankings. Against DRX, Kingen against 369, I probably prefer 369. Kanavi against Piosik, I think I prefer Kanavi. Yagao against Zika, I prefer Zika. LPC and Missing against Deft and Barrel, I probably prefer DRX. If DRX played JDG, I think I would go for DRX. I think that JDG would probably be listed as a favorite against DRX, but I would bet on DRX and I would prefer DRX as the side in general. JDG against Vitality, I think that I just like Vitality more. And then we have 369 against Kana, Dread and Kanavi, BDD, Yagao, Ghost. I think that I'm fine leaving it like this. Then we have one more. We have Ninjas in Pajamas. So Rich, Karsa, Rookie, Photic, and PP God. This is an interesting team for me because I don't love Rich, but Karsa and Rookie should be very good. I don't think that Photic and PP God are that good. I don't think that. I'm not convinced that they're going to be good as a combo. So I think that I probably have to put them above Nongshim as well. Because I think that if I'm just comparing Karsa Rookie to Dread BDD, I'd take Karsa Rookie, and I think that's the most important part of this matchup. So we have 5 teams left. So BLG, Weibo Gaming. So let's do that. So the Shy against Breathe. I think that Breathe is probably better than the Shy at this point, but you have to give a lot of respect to the Shy. And I know that the last year or so has looked rough, but I truly think that the Shy is still one of the best top laners in the world. Weiwei against SFM. I think that Suning missed Sword Art a lot last year, and they had some suspect drafts, so it's very possible that they could look bad again. But I like that they brought back Sword Art. I think that this core and then having the Shy instead of Bin, it's basically the same, but the best case scenario is that the Shy is still elite and somehow is a big improvement over Bin. I think that it might be easier for them to play through top lane with the Shy because the Shy's ability to carry games is better, but I think that his ability to go even is not as good as Bin. So it might warp the team entirely, but I'm hopeful, and I think that I like them better. And then Weibo against Evil Geniuses. I think I just like Weibo better. Okay. So let's go to the next team. So next up, we have Top Esports. No, we have LNG. So LNG, I think, is a little overhyped. No, let me rephrase that. I think that Ale is overhyped from their Worlds performance, but I think that Tarzan is better than SFM, Doinb is better than Angel, and then I prefer Huanfeng and Sword Art to Light and Lumao. I think that Elwandi is still on, or Iwandi is still on the team as well. But that's a very close matchup. I'm fine putting it like this, but I do think that I prefer Weibo because they have the Shy and Huanfeng and Sword Art. I think that Huanfeng, if I'm ranking like players in terms of who's the best in this, it's LNG. Because like that's what I do is I default to who is the best player in this matchup. I think that the best player in this matchup comes down to Tarzan, Doinb, and Huanfeng. I think those are the three most talented players in this matchup. So the fact that there's two of them from LNG, I'm just going to take LNG. Let's go next. So Top Esports. So we have Top Esports going from 369 to Zoom. Apparently they thought that 369 was the problem. I think that Zoom is definitely very good. And they ended up winning the Demacia Cup, I think. Right? I think. And I think Zoom had some good Camille performances there, it's fine. Like, that's kind of the result of a draft, though. I just don't think that Zoom has the upside of, like, the Shy or Breathe. I think that the Shy and Breathe are just still better carry players than Zoom is. But if we're going Zoom, let's just do Zoom against LNG, or Top Esports against LNG. So Zoom against Ale. I might actually still prefer Zoom over Ale. Tion versus Tarzan. I prefer Tarzan. Doinb against Knight. I prefer Knight a little bit, I think. But they're just very close. It's basically break even. And then Jackie Love and Zhuo against Light and Lumao. That one's pretty close. I think I just prefer LNG. Do I prefer LNG? That feels wrong. I think from that there's too much bias from last year leaking into my brain. So we're gonna go Top Esports. I think from a talent perspective, they're probably still slightly more talented. They just fell apart at the end of last year. Then we have RNG. Let's do them against Top Esports. Bin against Zoom. I think I like Bin more than Zoom. Wei against Tion. I think I prefer Wei. Xiaohu against Knight. I prefer Knight, but Xiaohu is like an incredible player. And then Gala and Ming against Jackie Love and Zhuo. That one's very close. I think I prefer RNG. That one's so close. I definitely prefer RNG to LNG, right? Bin against Ale. I prefer Bin personally. I'm a Bin fan, so maybe that's just my bias. Wei against Tarzan. I prefer Tarzan. Doinb against Xiaohu. Same thing. I think all three of those players are incredibly good. Gala and Ming against Light and Lumao. Very close. Then let's go against Weibo. Bin versus the Shy. I prefer the Shy. Wei against SFM. That one's close. Stylistically, they're just so different. It's tough to say. Xiaohu versus Angel. I prefer Xiaohu. And then Huanfeng and Sword Art against Gala Ming. I prefer Huanfeng and Sword Art. So I think this is a good group of teams. I think that they are, matchup dependent and draft dependent, and it's tough because like they have good matchups against some teams and bad matchups against other teams that are right next to them. So I'm fine leaving it right here. I'll have to go back through this and get like more specific, but that's fine. And then let's do EDG last. So EDG, Flandre against the Shy. I still prefer the Shy. Flandre against Ale. That one's very close. I might actually prefer Ale. Flandre against Zoom and Bin. I prefer Zoom and Bin. So Flandre, obviously, a world-class player, can be on a world championship team. He just did that. But, you know, he's not my favorite top laner in the world. Jai Jai against SFM, Tarzan, Tian, and Wei. I think that Jai Jai is middle of the pack there. Scout against Angel. I prefer Scout. Scout against Duanbi. I prefer Duanbi. Scout against Knight and Xiaohu. I prefer Knight and Xiaohu. Viper against Huanfeng. I prefer Viper. I prefer Viper against all these guys. And then Mako. These are some quality supports. Mako, Sword Art, Lu Mao, Ming, Zhuo. They're all good supports, so there's not a huge difference there. I don't think I like... See, because, like, EDG against Weibo. If it goes through the bot lane, I think if the game is decided by bot or mid, I could see EDG just having a slight edge. But I could also see the Shy and SFM kind of turning a game on its head. But I think I'm fine with having EDG above them. EDG against LNG. That one's more difficult. I just think that top jungle mid against the bot lane, I think most of the time that's going to benefit the LNG side more often. And Light had some really good performances at Worlds. And then let's just keep going. Top esports against EDG. Zoom might prefer Jai Jai. It's pretty close. I prefer Knight to Scout. And then Jackie Love and Zhuo. Jackie Love and Zhuo. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, it's tough. Like, I think that from a public perception standpoint, you're probably better off picking EDG once, like obviously you're not betting on World's Finals like this far away, but I could see EDG not struggling, but I could see the meta being like a mid jungle meta where EDG kind of struggles, and then, you know, Viper doesn't really have as many opportunities to carry the game. So I'm fine leaving it like this. And then let's run T1 through the gauntlet, see what they look like. So Zeus against the Shy. I prefer the Shy. I don't know enough about Zeus. Owner against SFM. I probably prefer Owner. It's a thought, though, in my head. Faker against Angel. I prefer Faker. Gumayusi and Keria against Huanfeng and Sword Art. That's just stylistically. It's just completely different styles. I would give T1 the edge, though, over Weibo. T1 against EDG. Zeus against Flandre. Question mark, but I would not be shocked if Zeus is just better than Flandre. Owner against Jai Jai. You probably have to give it to Jai Jai, but Owner, again, had some really good performances at Worlds. Faker... Wait, why am I doing it against them? Owner against SFM, I prefer Owner. Faker against... Did I already do that one? I feel like I'm going crazy. No, I'm supposed to be doing it against EDG. This video has been going on for a while. Faker against Scout. I think I still prefer Faker. Gumayusi and Keria against Viper and Mako. Stylistically, it's tough. Let's see what they look like against LNG. Zeus and Ale. I really wouldn't be surprised if Zeus is better than Ale. Owner against Tarzan. Tarzan's better. Faker against Duanbi. Duanbi's better. Gumayusi and Keria. I prefer them to Light and Lu Mao. So I think that that's a really close matchup. Let's go against RNG. Zeus against Bin. Probably prefer Bin outright. Owner against Wei. Close again. Faker against Xiaohu. Close. Gumayusi and Keria. I prefer Gumayusi and Keria. So I think I would just take T1 there. And then T1. Zeus and Zoom. Pretty close. I think I prefer Owner to Tian at this point. I prefer Knight to Faker. Gumayusi and Keria against Jackie Love and Zhuo. I think I prefer Gumayusi and Keria. So I think that T1 belongs in this tier because it is so matchup dependent and stylistic differences Man, it's tough. And again, like having someone in S versus A is not a huge thing. If any of these teams ended up winning the world championship, like if the world championship was held next weekend and one of these teams won, I'd be like, yeah, that's who I thought was going to win. So tough, tough to split teams at this point. But I guess Dom won against Genji. Dom won against Genji is really the big question. Doran against Birdall. Doran's more consistent than Birdall. Birdall might just have a much higher upside. Peanut against Canyon. Canyon's a very good player. I think I prefer Canyon by a decent amount still. But Peanut does have it in him to completely destroy a game in a good way. Then Showmaker and Chovy. There's no splitting up that. And then Ruler and Lehens against Deokdam and Kellen. I prefer Ruler and Lehens. So it really comes down to Birdall Canyon. Can they outplay Doran and Peanut harder than Ruler and Lehens can outplay Deokdam and Kellen? Just incredibly close. I think I prefer both of them to T1. So I think this is I do think that this is how I see things right now. And obviously a Chinese team can come in and win worlds and beat one of the teams from Korea. You saw it happen last year. I think a lot of people were surprised at how good Korea was at Worlds last year. I wasn't, because of stuff like this. Like I go through this, I think about these teams playing against one another, and I know that my talent evaluation is pretty good. So when I think that a talented team is playing against a talented team, that's more important than like, oh well, they just lost to a bad team. Like that stuff doesn't really matter as much to me. I'm more about long-term form. I want as many world-class players or elite players on the teams that I'm betting on. And that's basically it. So I hope you found this video enjoyable. I felt like I did a good job speeding through most of it in the beginning, and then it got more into the thinking part of the video. But that's what you have to do. I know that it's not the easiest thing to watch as I'm kind of going through this, but the best information that I can give to you comes when I'm thinking out loud and comparing players to one another, because then you get a glimpse into how I think about things, and you can ask yourself, do I agree with him? Do I disagree? Have I seen something different to what he is seeing? And that's how you have to form these opinions, because ultimately you're the one risking your money, not me. So that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.